Rina stood quietly at the train station, waiting to board. Earlier that morning, she had planned to arrive sooner, but her 6-month-old baby had cried endlessly at home. By the time she managed to settle everything, she was already exhausted and had missed the earlier train. Her dark hair neatly tied back, she wore a simple white blouse, a gray pencil skirt, and flat shoes. Professional, practical, and tired. At 32, she had never imagined that life would look quite like this. As she waited, the station slowly filled. She noticed a tall man sitting nearby, typing relentlessly on his laptop, absorbed in what appeared to be academic papers. A few steps away, a young girl walked beside her mother, clutching her hand tightly as they moved through the crowd. Across from them sat an elderly man with gray hair, reading a thick book titled Poor Charlie's Almanac, The Wit and Wisdom of Charles T. Munger. He had probably checked it out because he admired Warren Buffett and the world of investing. The old man looked simple and calm, the kind of person who refused to waste a sharp mind and continued learning whenever he could. Watching them, Rina reflected on the pace of the world. In an age where everything moved faster than ever, people often preferred to let machines or artificial intelligence handle the smallest, most meticulous tasks. Her own job was not especially demanding, yet she constantly felt pressure to do more, to move faster, to accomplish everything at once, even when her energy was drained and her time stretched thin. Her thoughts drifted briefly to her brother. Life seemed easier for him. Their father had supported him for years, even into adulthood. Sometimes the unfairness stung, but she knew dwelling on it would lead nowhere. She had her own path to walk, her own family to support, and no room to rely on anyone else. As she continued observing the people around her, she noticed something simple but profound. Some people moved quickly because their road ahead was straight. Others moved slowly because their path was winding. Perhaps neither pace was wrong. Perhaps every journey simply unfolded in its own way. Rina took a quiet breath and allowed herself to feel a small sense of peace. Maybe she didn't need to race. Maybe she only needed to take the next step and live it fully.
Rina flashed back to when she was 10 years old, a time when she often felt overwhelmed by her own emotions. She remembered a specific argument with her brother after she had accidentally spilled a glass of water. Despite it being a simple mistake, her parents had blamed her, siding with her brother and telling her she should stop being so careless. Deep down, she knew she had tried to be careful, but the injustice of it made her weep. It wasn't just the water. It was the feeling that her father always went easy on her brother, while constantly finding fault in her. Looking back on those memories now, she thought about the stinging words her husband had thrown at her during their fight yesterday. "In your mind, everyone but yourself is at fault," he had said. "Even when you know you're wrong, you never admit it. You just shift the blame. Ask anyone close to you if I'm wrong. You did it with your previous bosses, your colleagues, your friends. It feels like it's impossible to make you happy." Deep down, she had wanted to say the exact same thing to him. Even in her moments of happiness, she felt him pushing her to do more, to be more productive, to be a better mother, and to provide more care for his own mother, who, in her late 60s, was struggling with the severe pain of spinal disc slips. It felt as though he was constantly measuring her against the idealized version of his mother from years ago, only seeing Rina's faults. She hoped this heavy feeling wasn't just a shadow brought forward from her childhood. She wanted to believe she had already forgiven her father, but she was being humbled by the reality that trauma and forgiveness go hand in hand. It was a long, winding road, and she had to accept that her healing was still a work in progress. With a heavy sigh, she continued to clean the dinner dishes and washed her baby's milk bottles separately. Rina stood over the sink, the steam from the hot water clouding the kitchen window until the outside world disappeared. As she scrubbed the baby's milk bottles, her husband's voice echoed in the quiet room, sharper than it had felt during the heat of the fight. "It's like it's impossible to make you happy." She looked down at her hands, reddened by the heat, tired from a day of carrying everyone else's expectations. She realized she was scrubbing the plastic too hard, as if she could wash away the guilt of her childhood and the exhaustion of her marriage with a single sponge. Was she really just a work in progress? Or was she just a woman who had been taught that her only value lay in being useful? She set the last bottle on the drying rack with a deliberate, echoing click. For the first time, she didn't just sigh and move on. She walked to the mirror in the hallway and looked, really looked, at the woman in the white blouse and gray skirt. The professional, the mother, the tired daughter. She took a slow, deep breath of the damp kitchen air. She didn't just pray for strength tonight. She prayed for the courage to stop running toward a perfection that didn't exist. As she climbed into bed, she didn't close her eyes immediately. Instead, she reached for her phone and opened a blank message. She didn't know yet if she was going to text her husband, her brother, or simply a note to herself. All she knew was that tomorrow, the next step wouldn't be taken out of habit. It would be taken out of choice. The next morning, Rina woke at 4 a.m., but the usual weight of exhaustion was gone, replaced by a quiet, buzzing energy. She picked up her phone and followed through on the silent promise she had made the night before. She wrote a manifesto to herself. Take charge. Live by choice. Before the house had fully stirred, she and her husband found a rare moment of stillness in the kitchen. The air between them, once thick with the residue of their fight, began to clear. She spoke honestly about her childhood shadows, and for the first time, he didn't just hear her, he listened. His apology was quiet, but sincere, a commitment to support her as she worked to dismantle the trauma she had carried for over 20 years. He didn't ask her to be productive today. He simply asked her to be herself. By the time lunch arrived at the office, the day had flowed with an unfamiliar smoothness. As Rina opened her lunchbox, a soft smile tugged at her lips. She was reminded of their dinners at home, the battles that took place over the center of the table. Her husband and mother-in-law had a recurring, hilarious ritual. It was a fight of pure selflessness, each trying to force the best portions of food onto the other's plate. "You need the nutrients," her husband would insist, hovering a piece of seafood over his mother's rice. "I've had enough. You're the one working all day," his mother would retort, shielding her plate like a soldier. Sometimes the intensity grew so great that a stray piece of stir-fried vegetable or a cube of silken tofu from the clay pot would tumble onto the tablecloth between them, leaving them both laughing. Rina had never seen anything like it during her lonely college years, nor in the silent, judgmental home of her youth. It was a chaotic, but beautiful kind of love. She realized then that she was building a life on a different foundation. It wasn't the shallow mantra of, You only live once. It was something deeper. You only die once, but you live every day. She had lost her mother to cancer and remained estranged from her father. But as she sat in the quiet office break room, she felt an overwhelming surge of gratitude. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was finally learning how to build a home.